Let me tell you, we're going to be working in some new material, right, Stan?
Here we have a double door routine.
Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy, the legendary comedy duo whose names are synonymous with slapstick genius, made millions of people laugh across the globe. From silent films to talkies, their timing, chemistry, and iconic routines defined an era of comedy that still resonates today. Fans imagine them as inseparable partners, two men bound by laughter, friendship, and decades of performing together. But behind the curtain, the truth was far more complicated than anyone could have guessed. When Oliver Hardy passed away in 1957, the world expected Stan Laurel to be front and center at his funeral. After all, they had shared some of the most iconic moments in cinematic history. Yet, to the shock of fans and Hollywood insiders, Stan did not attend. The reason why has remained shrouded in mystery for decades, fueling speculation, rumors, and countless what really happened stories. Some say it was heartbreak that kept him away. Others whisper about personal conflicts that went beyond the cameras. The truth, however, is a delicate mix of grief, guilt, and the deep complexities of a lifelong partnership. Stan Laurel's refusal to attend was not out of malice, but something far more human, a poignant reflection of love, loss, and the silent struggles behind a legendary friendship. In this video, we uncover the untold story of Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy, exploring why Stan stayed away from the funeral, the emotional weight he carried in the years after Oliver's death, and the hidden truths about the comedy duo that fans never learned on screen. Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy's partnership is one of the most celebrated in cinematic history. Together, they created a unique blend of physical comedy, impeccable timing, and heartwarming camaraderie that captivated audiences from the 1920s to the 1950s. But their story wasn't just about laughter on screen, and it was also about the personal bond that underpinned decades of work, a relationship filled with loyalty, trust, and at times quiet tension. Stan Laurel, born in 1890 in England, was known for his wit, intelligence, and meticulous attention to comedic detail. He wasn't just a performer. He was a craftsman, constantly refining routines and analyzing gags to ensure that every gesture and line landed perfectly. Oliver Hardy, born in 1892 in Georgia, was larger than life both physically and emotionally, with a booming presence that balanced perfectly against Stan's delicate, almost nervous energy. Together, they became the quintessential comedy duo. Oliver the pompous, often exasperated foil, Stan the gentle, clumsy straight man, whose subtle expressions added layers to every scene. Their partnership began in the silent film era, where timing, expression, and physicality were everything. Both men quickly realized that their contrasting personalities created a magical synergy. While they were often portrayed as carefree fools on screen, off-camera they were professional and deeply committed to their craft. Stan was the brains behind many of their routines, writing, directing, and constantly experimenting with comic ideas. Oliver brought warmth, charisma, and an ability to connect with audiences that complemented Stan's precision. Despite the public perception of their seamless partnership, working together wasn't always easy. Long hours on set, grueling schedules, and the pressures of show business tested their patience. There were disagreements over scripts, gags, and creative direction. Yet, through it all, mutual respect prevailed. Stan often went out of his way to protect Oliver, managing their work behind the scenes to ensure the duo's success. Similarly, Oliver valued Stan's intellect and creativity, often deferring to his partner's judgment. Their golden era was marked by some of the most iconic comedy films in history: The Music Box, Sons of the Desert, and Way Out West, among many others. These films showcased their signature blend of physical comedy, clever timing, and heartfelt emotion. Fans around the world laughed at their antics, but few realized how much effort, collaboration, and care went into crafting even the simplest gag. Off-screen, their friendship was equally complex. Stan and Oliver spent countless hours together, traveling, rehearsing, and living in close quarters. They shared personal milestones, celebrated achievements, and offered support during hardships. Yet beneath the surface, both men were intensely private and sensitive. Stan, in particular, struggled with perfectionism and emotional vulnerability, while Oliver faced health issues and the pressures of maintaining a public image. Their friendship was strong, but it was also deeply nuanced, a mix of love, dependency, and unspoken challenges that only they could fully understand. By the time Oliver Hardy's health began to decline in the 1950s, Stan Laurel had spent nearly 3 decades building a life and career intertwined with his partner. Their bond was unbreakable in many ways, yet quietly fragile in others. Understanding this complexity is crucial to comprehending why, when Oliver passed away, Stan made the shocking decision not to attend his funeral. It was a choice rooted in decades of shared laughter, personal struggle, and emotional depth, a decision that would forever mystify fans and historians alike. By the mid-1950s, Oliver Hardy's health had begun to decline, signaling the approaching end of an era for comedy fans worldwide. The larger-than-life performer who had delighted audiences with his booming voice, expressive face, and impeccable timing was now facing the quiet, inevitable struggles of aging. Behind the laughter, there were hospital visits, declining energy, and moments of reflection that only those closest to him could witness. Oliver had always been the more public-facing half of the duo in many ways, charming journalists, attending premieres, and engaging with fans. Yet even as he maintained that spirited persona, those who knew him well could see the toll that years of performing had taken. Stan Laurel, ever observant, noticed the subtle changes, the slower movements, the fatigue during rehearsals, and the increasing reliance on medication. As always, Stan offered quiet support, adjusting routines and filming schedules to accommodate his partner's needs. Their friendship, forged over decades, was a source of comfort during these challenging times. Family, friends, and co-workers could tell that Oliver was aware of his mortality. He spoke often about legacy, laughter, and the people who had made his life meaningful. Yet even in these private moments, the weight of his condition was heavy. Heart issues and lingering complications from past health problems had left him vulnerable, and he became increasingly dependent on those around him, particularly Stan, whose presence offered reassurance amidst uncertainty. During Oliver's final weeks, Stan was reportedly by his side as much as he could be. They reminisced about films, shared quiet conversations about life after comedy, and reflected on the partnership that had brought joy to millions. Yet the reality was grim. Oliver's body was failing, and there was little that even their bond could change. When the inevitable moment came, Oliver passed away quietly, leaving a void not only in the world of entertainment, but in Stan's life personally and professionally. The news of Oliver's death sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Fans mourned the loss of one half of the most beloved comedy duo in history, flooding newspapers and radio programs with tributes. Co-stars and industry colleagues spoke publicly about Oliver's talent, generosity, and humor. Yet amidst the public mourning, one notable absence stood out: Stan Laurel. For reasons that would puzzle and shock the public, Stan did not attend his longtime partner's funeral. Understanding why requires a closer look at the complex, often private nature of their relationship. Stan's perfectionism and emotional sensitivity, which had contributed to the brilliance of their partnership, also made grief profoundly personal. The idea of facing the public and the ceremonial aspects of a funeral, the speeches, the crowds, the cameras, may have felt overwhelming. To Stan, Oliver's passing was intensely private, a moment too intimate to be shared in a public spectacle. Moreover, there were elements of guilt and unresolved emotional tension. Stan often carried the burden of responsibility for both their careers and personal well-being, believing he should have done more to protect or support Oliver. These feelings compounded his grief, making a public farewell emotionally impossible. Instead, Stan chose solitude, honoring Oliver in his own quiet, deeply personal way, through memories, private rituals, and reflection rather than public display. Oliver Hardy's final days were marked by dignity, laughter, and the enduring bond of friendship. And while Stan Laurel's absence at the funeral confused many, It reflected a deeply human response to loss, a testament to the complexities of grief, love, and lifelong connection. In choosing private mourning over public ceremony, Stan Laurel revealed the profound depth of a friendship that, while famous, remained intensely personal to him. Stan Laurel's decision not to attend Oliver Hardy's funeral has puzzled fans for decades. On the surface, it seems unimaginable. After all, they were Hollywood icons, inseparable on screen, and lifelong friends off it. But the truth lies in the intricate layers of emotion, personal struggle, and a deeply private approach to grief that defined Stan's character. Stan was known for his meticulous nature, not only in comedy but in life. He had a sensitivity that few understood, a trait that made him a brilliant artist but also an intensely private individual. While the public assumed that laughter and fame defined him, Stan's inner world was governed by introspection and careful consideration of how he processed life's challenges. Losing Oliver wasn't just the death of a partner. It was the end of a relationship that had shaped every aspect of his personal and professional existence. Many historians and biographers suggest that grief played a major role in Stan's absence. The idea of attending a public funeral, standing among crowds of mourners, and facing cameras while being expected to display composure would have been unbearable. For Stan, grief was not performative. It was personal. Mourning required privacy, reflection, and solitude. He wanted to honor Oliver in his own way, away from public spectacle, where he could process the loss authentically rather than perform a ritual for the benefit of others. Beyond grief, there was guilt. Stan often felt responsible for the well-being of Oliver, both on set and off. He had managed many of the duo's professional challenges, protected Oliver from industry pressures, and guided creative decisions. The idea that he could have done more, that perhaps he had failed in some way, weighed heavily on him. Attending the funeral might have intensified these feelings, confronting him with emotions he was not ready to face in public. There were also practical and personal considerations. By the time of Oliver's death, Stan was living a life that had become increasingly solitary. Years of performing and traveling had instilled in him a preference for privacy and controlled environments. The chaos and attention surrounding a high-profile funeral would have been overwhelming, undermining the reflective, personal way he wanted to honor his friend. Some speculate that there may have been unspoken tension between them in their final years. Though evidence suggests these were minor conflicts, typical of long-term partnerships, and nothing that would explain a complete absence. Instead, Stan's choice appears rooted in personality and coping mechanisms. He mourned silently, privately, and in a manner that felt right to him, even if it baffled the public. Stan Laurel's absence from Oliver Hardy's funeral is a profound example of how grief manifests differently for each person. It underscores the depth of their partnership, a bond so personal that public displays could not encapsulate it. By honoring Oliver privately, Stan maintained the intimacy of their friendship, protecting it from the intrusion of fame, fans, and media spectacle. Ultimately, Stan's decision reflects both the tragedy and the beauty of their relationship. He carried Oliver's memory with him, cherished their shared years, and grieved in a manner consistent with a lifetime of thoughtfulness, sensitivity, and care. While he may not have stood at the funeral, his mourning was no less real or heartfelt, a silent testament to the enduring power of their connection. Although Stan Laurel did not attend Oliver Hardy's funeral, his tribute to his partner was far from absent. In the years following Oliver's death, Stan found ways to honor the man who had been not only his comedy partner, but also his closest friend. These acts of remembrance were quiet, personal, and deeply meaningful, reflecting both the depth of their bond and Stan's own character. Stan chose to commemorate Oliver through the preservation of their work. He meticulously safeguarded scripts, personal notes, and memorabilia from their decades together. Each item was a reminder of the laughter, creativity, and dedication that had defined their careers. Stan often revisited old routines, rewatching films, analyzing gags, and reflecting on the artistry they had created together. In doing so, he kept Oliver alive in his memory, honoring him through the very craft that had defined their lives. Friends and colleagues noted that Stan's conversations frequently included references to Oliver, even years after his passing. He would recount moments from filming, funny anecdotes, and behind-the-scenes stories that never made it to the public eye. These memories were more than nostalgia. They were a living tribute, a way to keep the spirit of Oliver Hardy vibrant in the world they had both helped shape. Stan also maintained a certain level of public acknowledgement, albeit in his understated way. In interviews and appearances, he spoke fondly of Oliver, often emphasizing their unique partnership and the joy they brought to audiences. He praised Oliver's talent, humor, and generosity, highlighting the qualities that made him more than just a comedic foil. Through these words, Stan paid homage to his friend without ever needing to step into a formal ceremony, showing that respect and love can transcend conventional gestures. Interestingly, Stan's private tributes reflected the dual nature of their relationship, deeply collaborative professionally, yet intensely personal emotionally. By choosing to grieve and commemorate in his own way, Stan preserved the authenticity of their connection. He avoided turning their mourning into a spectacle, instead channeling his emotions into reflection, storytelling, and the preservation of their creative legacy. For fans, the absence of Stan at Oliver's funeral may have seemed shocking or even cold, but in reality, it underscored a profound truth about their partnership. Some bonds are too intimate to be displayed publicly. Stan's method of remembrance, quiet, deliberate, and deeply personal, honored the life they had shared more effectively than any public gesture could have. It was a tribute rooted in understanding, respect, and love, demonstrating that sometimes the most meaningful memorials exist in memory and action rather than ceremony. Stan Laurel's legacy, intertwined with Oliver Hardy's, remains one of the most enduring in entertainment history. Even without attending the funeral, Stan ensured that Oliver's contributions, their shared achievements, and the joy they created together would never be forgotten. Through films, stories, and private reflection, he maintained the integrity of their bond, proving that true friendship and admiration transcend public expectations. In the end, Stan Laurel's refusal to attend Oliver Hardy's funeral was not an act of indifference, but an expression of a deeply personal approach to loss. It was a reminder that grief, love, and respect are not always visible to the world. Sometimes they exist quietly, in memory, and in the lasting legacy of shared life and work. And through that legacy, Stan Laurel ensured that Oliver Hardy's spirit would continue to bring laughter, inspiration, and admiration for generations to come.